How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, host of Tier Talk, and today we're going to talk a little bit about PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act. We're going to specifically gear towards staff members who have been falsely accused of a PREA accusation, and then how we can help them maintain their integrity once they're found innocent. That's the key. So for anybody that's not familiar with PREA is Prison Rape Elimination Act. So basically it deals with any inmate who says they were sexually assaulted or sexually abused, and sexual harassment. And obviously at this point we know there could be a lot of false allegations being made, and you could have good staff members whose now reputations getting tarnished. So what can we do during the investigative process or after the investigative process to make sure that those good staff members, they're able to maintain their sense of integrity? Because inmates will take advantage of PREA for nefarious reasons. So when we come back from our break, we're going to talk a little bit about PREA. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Being a corrections officer takes its toll on even the strongest individuals. The constant need to perform at the highest level, putting your life at risk in a hostile environment, and the mental scarring of traumatic experiences. 31% of corrections officers show symptoms of PTSD, and 66% of people with PTSD also suffer with a substance abuse problem. The Transformations First Responders program is specially designed to help veterans and officers heal from the grips of addiction and PTSD in a comfortable, supportive, and serene setting. You are not alone. If you have questions about the services we offer, give us a call at 866-762-8454 to get more information on this affordable and life-changing program.
Thank you guys for listening to our sponsors. So again, just to rehash a little bit about PREA, the Prison Rape Elimination Act. The reason why they put forth this act was because they're looking to encourage inmates to speak up if they were sexually abused or sexually harassed. So I want people to get out of their mind that it wasn't that corrections did not do anything and they had to finally implement this act to get us to do our job. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that we felt that there were more inmates that were being sexually abused and sexually harassed, and they weren't reporting it. So this was a way to encourage confidential routes for those numbers to be reported and more accurate, if you will. So again, we always had a zero tolerance for sexual assault, sexual abuse, or sexual harassment, and once we knew it existed, we acted accordingly. This was just a way to ensure confidential route and motivate inmates to speak up if they're being assaulted or harassed. Now, fortunately, like all good intent that people try to push from the outside inside, they don't realize how that good intent can be manipulated. I always talk about that, guys. I mean, we could protect ourselves from manipulation, but man, those policies that get manipulated, we have no defense against that because we have to act accordingly. And the inmates know that. The inmates know exactly what to say to get us to scramble. And it's unfortunately, PREA has been misused by the inmate population. You know, it's being used for personal motivation, you know, whatever that case may be, whether it's to manipulate a move, get a staff member off a unit because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know, many reasons. If you ask the front line will give you hundreds of those reasons. But again, there's a chance that it's going to be misused by the inmate population. So now you have officers or staff members, good staff members. Like I mentioned before, one of the reasons they want to falsely claim PREA against a staff member is because maybe that staff member does what they're supposed to do. Let's say it's a custody member and they're doing their searches and they're on to something and they got to get that officer out of the unit. So they'll make a false allegation, which gets us to scramble. Management will scramble a little bit, but in that scramble, the management has to make a decision what needs to be done with the officer who's being accused. while there is the investigative process going on. So unfortunately, because liability carries a lot of weight, management may be forced into a position where they have to move that frontline professional. Because if they don't move them, and unfortunately something may be true, well, now we have a problem because we didn't protect the rest of the population. So if one inmate makes the allegation that this officer is touching me, we have to move the officer. And the reason why you have to move him or her is because you also have to protect the other inmates. And the way management is able to alleviate that liability is when the results of the investigation come back, and they either come back unfounded or unsubstantiated, or in some cases not even PREA at all. I look more for the not PREA or the unfounded. But either way, unsubstantiated, the results will alleviate the responsibility for management, and then they can say, well, I'm able to put this person back. So God forbid something was to happen, management got the investigative report from the last incident, nothing happened, so management can justify their decision in putting this person back on their post. And again, the way management has to act, they have to act in universal precaution. So I'm hoping that the front line understands that, because there's a bit of a confusion there, a bit of a conflict. Management has to act in regards to the overall safety of the facility, the population, the staff, so they have to act in a very universal and general manner. And then once something is recommended their way, then they're able to defer that responsibility, because they're able to have something substantiated that can say, okay, you know what, this case was found unsubstantiated, unfounded, or it's not even PREA, put this officer back. And then if I ever get questioned later on as to why that officer was put back, I can go ahead and refer to the paperwork from the Investigative Authority that did the investigation objectively, and this was their determination based on the facts. So that helps me. But again, during the investigative process, when everything is happening, we don't have any of that. So my immediate response may have to be, I got to get that staff member out of that unit, or I got to get that staff member away from the inmate population. And I know it sucks, because I know, because you're going to have these inmates that cry wolf, that do it all the time. But unfortunately here, we have to answer to every time they cry wolf. There's no ifs and buts about it. It's just the universal precaution, the sense of liability. Can't speed up the investigation either, because, God forbid they miss something. So the Investigative Authority is really left up to their own means, and there should be a timeline, 30, 60, 90 days, to give us back a result. But unfortunately, the longer the officer is pulled from their post, their name starts to get tarnished. I mean, when the investigation starts to occur, you're going to have a lot of officers that are going to be like, hey, we know that person didn't do it. It's a bunch of BS. But then as the process becomes a little bit lengthy, the officers that may have supported the officer that was removed, it may start to lessen. Again, because the investigation is taking so long. So the key is, when an officer goes to a false allegation, how do we maintain that officer's integrity, which is very key. I can't express that enough. An officer's integrity helps them be effective at the job, because integrity is all about respect. Inmates aren't going to respect you if you don't have integrity. That's one thing. And also the employee morale. I'm not going to want to work next to someone who I question their integrity. So it's very important that we do what we can to protect that falsely accused officer or staff member. We protect their integrity. And the best way to do that is that when the accusation is found to be unfounded, unsubstantiated, or not PREA at all, because maybe the inmate's making a complaint that actually falls into the daily routines of the officer, like a pat frisk. Sometimes we get complaints like that. You got to make it known the outcome of that. It just is what it is. And if it's unfounded or not PREA, and it turns out that the inmate lied, that inmate has to be charged. That inmate has to be charged, because that charge is going to protect the officer or staff member's integrity. Yeah, I know the investigation took 60, 90 days, but the inmate was charged for lying. Now the officer can walk back onto their compound with their head held high because they know that the other people see that the inmate was accused of lying, charges were found, and the officer now is in the clear. And that's needed, or the staff member's now in the clear. And that's needed. That charge on the inmate for lying will help maintain that officer's integrity. It will help maintain that officer's integrity. And that charge has to come from the objective agency. Has to either come from the Investigative Authority or the individual who is in charge of the PREA compliance. You know, you have to charge that inmate. That will help that person who is being falsely accused, once the investigation is done, go back and be more effective at what they do. They need that. They really, really do. They need that charge. Again, if the case is unfounded or not PREA. So, again, it's just a quick discussion. But again, if you're looking to challenge this, let's say an inmate makes a false allegation or an accusation, whatever it is, and you're the officer they're falsely accusing, go to your union, tell them what's going on, but you really can't do anything until the results of that investigation come back. You guys got to understand that. Once the results of the investigation come back, then you can push for those charges to be written, and you're going to push for those charges to be written so that officer or that staff member can go ahead and maintain their integrity in the workplace. And that's key. Because again, people may start to question that person's integrity the longer the investigation takes. So the best way for the objective agency to automatically get that person's integrity back is by writing that inmate a charge. Write that inmate a charge for lying, and I promise you that integrity for that officer will maintain where it needs to be so that person can be effective. Or the staff member, I apologize. I always say officer, but officer are my roots. So again, guys, that's my topic for the day. Hopefully I answered the question. Tomorrow we'll be doing a show on active shooter. I'm going to go interview someone who trains schools on how to prepare for an active shooter. His name is Joseph Pangaro. Joseph Pangaro. He owns a company called Management and Training, or Training and Management. So I'm going to meet up with him. We're going to have a great interview, and we're going to talk about the officer, unfortunately, Scott Peterson, who unfortunately didn't respond. Sad. But as always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. Please, guys, like, subscribe, interact, engage. Thank you guys constantly for your support. And when you subscribe, hit that bell. That bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. As always, stay safe, guys.